Dear ministers, travel industry leaders and distinguished guests, a very warm welcome to the 16th Ministers' Summit at World Travel Market in association with UNWTO and WTTC. This summit brings together both public and private sector in an open forum to discuss key challenges facing our industry. Such an approach is fundamental to delivering real change for the international travel sector. A post-pandemic world has revealed exciting new opportunities, trends and innovations. But it's also given us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reconsider tourism and ask ourselves, how can we rebuild differently and how can we prepare ourselves for the future? Ministers and travel industry leaders will try to answer both today. What should the tourism sector of tomorrow look like and how do we get there? It gives me great pleasure to declare the summit open, and I will now hand you over to the UNWTO Secretary General, Zurab Pololikashvili.
So what time did we...
How is everything?
Great, thank you.
I think it's a little bit crowded, you know, and if we want to listen to each other, it will be difficult. Sorry. Good morning to everyone. Very happy to meet to all our friends, dear ministers, dear colleagues. It's great to be back in London. Thank you, dear Juliet. It's the first time that we are organizing it together and for welcoming us to our first World Travel Market together. Dear Julia Simpson, thank you again for WTTC joining as co-organizer. This is a nice tradition we started last year, and I'm sure that we've never been as close and as working close as now and today. And public-private partnership has never been so important like today. We are very happy to work with your organization. We are only stronger if we work together. And above all, thank you to all our ministers and distinguished guests for lending their time and expertise. So, ladies and gentlemen, tourism is back, as you see, and as we saw today, yesterday, when we were traveling, the planes are full, hotels are full, so everything is back. So, and it's adapting to a new reality. As I say in the World Travel Market yearbook, we have a unique opportunity now to do more and to do better. But the window of opportunity will not stay open forever. We urgently need to rethink tourism in every way. As a top job provider, as a driver of opportunity, as an economic pillar, and as a solution to the climate emergency. This is a big to-do list, and we have no time to waste. Let's commit to starting here and now. So allow me to briefly expand on what I see as the main ways we can rethink and transform tourism. I will also touch on what we are doing at UNWTO and what we need from you as a minister and sector leaders. Firstly, we need to rethink tourism as an employer. Our sector is a lifeline, supporting millions of businesses and jobs. But during the pandemic, we saw large numbers of workers leave tourism. Not all of them have come back. I'm sorry, it's very crowded. You know, I don't think that you are listening. I kindly ask you. And this summer in Europe, we saw the results of these long queues at the airports and businesses struggling to meet demand. The crisis put 100 million direct tourist jobs at risk. Small and medium-sized businesses suffered most. They make up 80% of the sector. So they are also leading employers of women. We are also faced with a crisis of ambition. In emerging destinations, for example, we found that 50% of young people wish to be tourism entrepreneurs. But in too many cases, they are unable to achieve their dreams. This can be due to the lack of tools, training, our resources. We must make tourism an attractive sector to work in, and we must invest in people. Since the very beginning of my mandate, education and investment in human capital have been the pillars of the UNWTO activities. Motivated young people are the key to tourism success. More than ever, we need a strong tourism workforce. And for that, we need quality but affordable education. Since the start of the crisis, UNWTO has continued to expand our education programs. We work with the leading universities and institutions. Our UNWTO Tourism Online Academy has almost 20,000 students from 190 countries, and we reached these numbers just in 1.5 years. We offer 28 courses with top institutions, including IE University, La Roche, Swiss Education Group, Cornell University, Mandarin Center, Hong Kong Poly University, Unikemia, Panama, Invictus and Education, South Africa, Lucerne University of Switzerland, all main and top business schools, and we are offering thousands of scholarships. To give you just one example, in cooperation with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and thank you, dear Minister, for your full commitment and support, we announced in Jeddah during our Executive Council the plan to train 100,000 young tourism workers. 100,000 young tourism workers. It's never happened, never on the planet, to making our sector a real pillar of youth empowerment. And we are working on expanding and establish new education academies in our member states in response to huge demand for qualified and motivated personnel. Wherever we are, we can all governments to realize importance of tourism education and support us in our work. For instance, we are looking into launching a pilot project where we introduce tourism education as a subject in schools. During our next Executive Council, we will present our first educational guidelines. To date, 93 programs in 19 countries have a UNWTO TEDCOL certification. This is quality education at scale. Our regional office in Riyadh, we just saw, will create a new educational products for our member states. All above mentioned business schools and top universities I mentioned, we are collaborating with them in Riyadh's office, and from Riyadh's office we are, I would say, cooking these new products. It's a long process, but we are on very right way, and I think every year we can see the progress. Every year we see the new products and new courses which will support all communities to learn and to progress their knowledge, because without strong education it's impossible to be competitive, and we see that buildings and roads, it's not only enough. We need to invest in people, we need to invest in education, and this is what we think that to rethink tourism today. It never was as important, education in tourism, like it is today. So that's why we are working, and we will continue working to create more courses and to deliver to our member states. At the same time, we need businesses to be bolder in making clear the benefit tourism can offer. Like highlighting how tourism is a leading innovator is an effective way of attracting young talent. We are supporting startups everywhere. We held 10 global startup competitions in just 2 years during the COVID time, and we mobilized 16,000 applications. They have brought on board more than 20 private sector partners to help startups to grow. At the global scale, we are helping member states to create their own startup challenges. So far, we've developed initiatives in the Dominican Republic, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Panama, Tanzania, Nigeria, Morocco, Spain, Portugal, and Japan. And we directed more than $200 million of investments into the small businesses during these 2 years. But this is just the beginning. We need to continue working on a strong investment culture. We recognize the interest in our sector, but we know there is a great room for growth. In 2021, foreign direct investments in tourism was at 80% of 2019 levels. But at the same time, investment in tourism innovation stayed stable. That's around 43 billion of venture capital backing new ideas and solutions. But again, the potential is nowhere near being reached. For this, we created a new service for member states, the UNWTO doing business guidelines. Starting with the pilot countries, we started with the 5 countries, and we want to continue and to explain to investors why they have to invest in one of the other country in tourism. And we started, as I mentioned, with 5 countries, and this will be the next upcoming projects doing with our member states. The benefits of this, of course, will be felt far outside of our sector itself. If tourism grows, everybody wins. This is clear. And then there is another very important challenge, which is climate emergency, which represents the biggest threat of our lifetimes. Here in Europe, we just experienced the hottest summer in the last 500 years, and we see the extreme climate events in every global region. Tourism is vital for small island developing states, and rising sea levels put many destinations at risk. Low-lying destinations, above all, could be hit hard in the coming years. The lifeline of tourism will be cut, maybe for good, and this will have a major knock-on effect, including adding to the huge surge in climate-related migration our UN colleagues predicted for the years ahead. This week, world leaders are meeting at the COP27 climate conference in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and it's great to see how tourism is an active part of the joint response. Our Glasgow Declaration on Climate Action in Tourism has welcomed almost 700 signatories in a year, among their leading business destinations. We also have welcomed 11 signatories from the national level. Monaco, Panama, Portugal, Micronesia, and Kiribati have signed the last 5 months. All have committed to having carbon emission by 2030 and reaching net zero by 2050 at the latest. But to make a real impact, we need many more governments to step up. When you do, you can count on us for data you can trust. I think UNWTO is now the leading global provider of tourism intelligence. Our dashboards guide policy and businesses' decisions everywhere. And we worked with the Euronews on a travel trends report, bringing our analysis of what is come too far outside the sector bubble. We will launch this tomorrow here in the world travel market. In turn, we need to be able to count on you, the ministers, to be louder in making the case for tourism. The role of ministers of tourism is becoming even more important, and we count on your cooperation in making our sector relevance and power clear. In too many cases, tourism is an isolated part of government. Instead, ministers of tourism should be working together with their colleagues in ministers of culture, of businesses and environment. Only a whole of government approach can deliver the scale and speed of transformation the climate emergency demands. And of course, a new reality demands new tourism governance. And within UNWTO, we are rethinking how we do things right. I warmly invite you all to our next Executive Council in Marrakesh, in Morocco, in exactly 2 weeks. Here, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Spain, and UNWTO will propose of a new task force. What is task force? The theme of today's meeting is to rethink tourism. And all year we were talking about to rethink tourism. I'm sorry and I apologize. We have many panels, but we need some concrete results and we need some concrete guidelines. So that's why this task force will serve to create and to rethink and to redesign tourism in the future with concrete steps, with concrete guidelines, and then we, of course, will deliver to our member states. At the same time, we advocate for tourism at the highest level. This year, tourism was placed at the top of the UN agenda, and many of you attended that historical meeting and event. We organized it first time ever, a thematic event within the United Nations General Assembly. Then just last week, I am coming from, I don't know where I'm coming from. I travel a lot from New York, and I met with the new presidency. Before, thanks to our dear minister from Maldives, supported because Maldives has a presidency, now it's Hungary, and we agreed, and this is another very big step, to hold more events dedicated to tourism in the framework of UNGA, the General Assembly. And this will be tradition, and every year we will have our day on the UN stage. But change cannot come just from the top. People and small enterprises are the foundations on which our sector is built. Our G20 Bali guidelines highlighting the vital role of workers and small and micro enterprises. They make clear why we must empower them and make them agents of local transformation. In the same way, we must make tourism a real game changer for rural communities. Our Best Tourism Villages initiative celebrates those places where the sector is making a real difference. This initiative creates new jobs in tourism, preserves the culture and natural heritage of the places, attracts investors, and makes local populations proud of their homes. And finally, we cannot forget about tourists themselves. Our International Code for the Protection of Tourists is the landmark legal first, and it is designed to restore confidence in travel. And I'm pleased to say growing numbers of countries and destinations are signing up to the code. So dear friends, we live in challenging times, facing the pandemic, climate change, and geopolitical turbulence. The Russian invasion in Ukraine adds to other tension, and they are preventing people from traveling safely. This has a serious impact on economic and social well-being everywhere. More than ever, we stress that without peace, there can be no tourism, and that at the same time, tourism is a powerful force for bringing peace. Dear friends, we have made the Minister Summit a platform to address the key ideas driving our sector. This means asking the right questions. Is it realistic to go back to the record figures of before the pandemic? How can we ensure that our ecosystems and societies sustain growth? Are we on the right path? The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned us that the global community is moving back forwards, and in our efforts to build a more prosperous and equal world. This calls for an honest assessment of our sector, and we must ask the hard questions and find the right solutions. We have a responsibility to get back on track, and I'm sure that we have the power to do it so. I have just given you a brief overview of what we are doing, and we are building up skills and training, connecting workers with jobs, making our sector more diverse, and guiding tourism towards greater sustainability. But like I also said that at the beginning, we need to see more action from governments. All of us here today recognize that governments come and go. As ministers of tourism, your leadership is our sector may last for decades or maybe just a year or two. I call on you to leave a legacy and deliver lasting change. The most effective way of doing this is investing in tourism, in its people and its infrastructure. Restructure financing so that the sector gets the support it needs to become more resilient and sustainable. I guarantee you it will be an investment that delivers long-term gains. So for this summit and moving forward, I want to hear real proposals and commitments, and I'm sure that together all will rethink tourism again. And I'm very thankful and very happy to be here again with you, dear ministers, dear friends. And I'm sure that we will have a very fruitful and successful another WTM ministerial roundtable. Thank you very much, and have a nice stay in nice and beautiful London.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Zurab. I am Julia Simpson, CEO and President of the World Travel and Tourism Council, and standing here before you representing the voice and my 200 members globally. Your Excellencies, Zurab, Secretary General, firstly, can I apologise for the weather? It's ghastly, I know. It's London. It's what it is. But welcome, a very warm, if not wet, welcome to this year's Ministers' Summit. It really is great to be here and see so many old friends and new friends. I was thinking that recovering from the pandemic is actually an opportunity for us to rethink about our sector. It was a time of existential crisis for travel and tourism, but it also was an inflection point, and it offered many lessons. The first lesson was leadership. Many of you in this room showed enormous courage as borders closed and often, sadly to say, political decisions were made on restricting travel. It made me think about the power in this room, the power that you had at the top tables of your governments and the top tables of your business. And it is indeed the power of public-private friendship and partnership. Some say, that the market really is best cut free from government, but I'm not of that view. In my career, I have been privileged to serve a government and the people of a country. And I still feel now in the private sector, we are here to serve people. And I have come to realize that true innovation comes when business and government really do work together. But when the private and public sectors are really united, and The Economist, she's a wonderful economist, you must read her, Mariana Mazzucato, she calls this the entrepreneurial state, when government sets a direction, creates the policies, the environment, the incentive for business to flourish, and then the private sector with its immense talent, speed and capital step up to the challenge. I think the second thing I learned about the pandemic is our job here today is to ensure that if we have another pandemic, and that is very, very possible, that we insist on rational decisions and we have a single IT platform shared globally so that whether you've got an EU green travel pass or a DVOC travel pass in India, or a smart pass in Canada and the US, people can smoothly move through borders. And there were also some courageous voices in this room, and some of you know who you were. Certainly His Excellency Al-Khatib at the time was calling for governments to actually come together and get some rational global approach, and it didn't happen. So please remember the power you have in this room. The next time that happens, that you join forces with each other and we get a much more rational approach. And why am I saying it? Well, the reason I'm saying it is it was a health crisis, but no one yet has counted the real economic costs, not just to travel and tourism, but to our children's mental and physical well-being, to the social impact of the whole economic crisis that we went through. We know in our sector, and we've said it many times, that we lost 62 million jobs and 5 trillion. And why does that matter? Why would a government care if I'm a Prime Minister now? Well, it does care because our sector creates 1 in 10 jobs on this planet, and it contributes $1 in $10. That matters. That is people being able to feed and educate their families. Some businesses have now returned back to 2019 numbers. You know, I've been speaking to people in the wonderful Rita, Her Excellency in Portugal. We're seeing really, really good numbers, and it's great. Probably globally, we won't get back to where we were until 2023. But we've also been doing with Oxford Economics, who is our data partner, as you know, a little throw forward to the next 10 years. And while travel and tourism was a growth sector that grew for 9 consecutive years before the pandemic, what's going to happen now? Well, it actually shows we are going to return to becoming a growth sector. And we will outstrip by double the global growth of GDP. So again, when we are talking to our presidents and our prime ministers, that is our value. We are being invested in, and we can give so much back. Today, demand is outstripping supply. It is a very, very strange recession that we're in, because that doesn't normally happen, and it's also a recession with very, very high employment rates. But whether we are in a full-blown recession, whether it is just a downturn, or whether, as some commentators say, it was a necessary economic correction, whatever we're in, we know that we have issues around labour shortages at the moment. So, you know, what can we do about that? We need really to be very inventive, attracting right people back to our sector, because it's a sector that offers so many great opportunities. If Chris Nassetta, the CEO of Hilton, who is one of our wonderful members, could be here today, he started as a bellboy. That is what our sector offers. It's direct entry jobs that give people with the right attitude the possibility to go to the top. In the Caribbean, sometimes people join big hotel groups like Sandals, and they cannot read and write. And there are people today in the Sandals group that have MBAs. That is what our sector offers to people. So we need to incentivize employees with better benefits and opportunities, and we need to recognize that jobs always need to be decent, and it is our role in the private sector working alongside you to ensure that. I was talking to Mauritius, the Minister, His Excellency from Mauritius. What a great job they've done on their island. Everybody there that serves you when you're in a hotel is highly educated. The roads, the infrastructure is wonderful. I don't see poverty when I go around Mauritius. They have ploughed their money from travel and tourism back into the community, and that is what it should do. And we need to invest more skills in training people in digital literacy. Yesterday, I found out that I could spend $60,000 on an artwork that I'd only ever be able to look at on my computer. Believe you me, the world is changing, and it's changing really, really fast. Actually, look at Saudi Arabia. They have this incredibly young population. 70% of their population is young. So they get this. They really get it. That's why, as they're investing in travel and tourism, they are investing in their young people. But without our close collaboration and partnership, none will come to fruition. So please, I beg you, let's carry on working together, rethinking tourism to make it even more dynamic, even more sustainable, and always inclusive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia. Oh, good. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. I'm Zainab Badawi, and it's my great pleasure to be with all of you and to be moderating this Ministers' panel discussion. You've heard 3 excellent speakers. Thank you, Secretary General, Julia and Juliet, before you. If I could just say that basically what all of you were talking about was the power of tourism. The power of tourism to transform people's lives who work in the industry, the travelers who go and see their curiosity excited or they're going for business reasons. And I think, as Julia, you said, we have seen this huge bounce back after the COVID pandemic really decimated the industry in so many countries. But of course, now we do face new challenges, the food and energy crisis, and of course, we have COP27 meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh And we know that there are some very real climate challenges, not only for the whole world, but also those specifically pertaining to the travel and tourism industry. So what I propose that we do in this ministers' discussion, and there are some of you also in the outer circle, I've got all these papers of all the people who are very, very keen to speak. So what I say to you all ministers is, please keep your comments as succinct as possible. And if you do that, I'll even come back to you a second time, maybe, because I know you all want to talk about the wonderful things you're doing in your respective countries. But, you know, mindful of what our opening speakers have said, we are discussing rethinking tourism. So please bring to the fore your innovative ideas. What are you doing in your respective nations which could inspire others to follow your lead? What is working? What isn't? What do you want to correct? What do you see as your vision? Because as Julia said, this is perhaps a once in a lifetime to rethink the travel and tourism industry. So don't just give us, you know, the glossy brochures of come and visit my country, I've got this, that and the other. Tell us about the challenges you are really experiencing. Are you finding it hard to be advocates for tourism within your governments? As Julia said, you know, and Zorab, you need a kind of, you know, pan-governmental approach. You need infrastructure with you need energy with you need the Minister of Finance with you. It isn't just tourism. So please do think about the innovative ideas that you're bringing to the table. Ahmed Al-Khatib, I'm going to start with you. You're the Minister of Tourism for Saudi Arabia. And you're doing some very interesting things. And what I find interesting about Saudi Arabia is, let's be honest, you're not a country that has been associated with tourism in the past, correct? And you want to really change that and make yourselves a very popular destination for tourists. So people can say, where are you going on holiday this year, Zainab? And I say, oh, I'm going to Jeddah, actually, in Saudi Arabia. And that people just see that as something quite normal and not exceptional. So tell us what you are doing, because you're starting from almost from scratch, as it were. Not too long, but you've got your Jeddah, You've got your NEOM smart city, you're harnessing the power of technology and the digital world. So in a nutshell, why should we visit Saudi Arabia?
First, I'm happy to be here, and I'm always honest. You know, Saudi Arabia is investing $800 billion in the next 10 years to build major destinations and cities. And therefore, we learned from the past and from the pandemic and from the major transformation happening in the technology and telecommunications. And therefore, we are reflecting this in everything we do to build a seamless, pleasant journey for any future tourist who wants to have an amazing experience. We heard from Zorab how the sector is doing, and we heard from Julia what are the challenges. We are focusing on three things: the planet, the people, and the place. And when it comes to the place, we are building a model destinations, seamless, new airports. Riyadh airports will be announced end of this month with an over 180 million passengers a year, and the WTTC, and new destinations like the Red Sea and NEOM and Qiddiya and Dir'iyya. In the places we are building, we're making sure the material we use are environmental friendly to ensure sustainability, and also the technology using is going to facilitate the journey of the people who are visiting these destinations. People, when they travel, they don't want to spend time in airports and logistics. They want to go to the destination itself and enjoy it. And also, we announced 1 million jobs in the next 10 years, which require massive amount of training. And therefore, we launched the first batch this year with the Secretary General, where Saudi Arabia will train 100,000 people every year for the next 10 years. and allocated $150 million to fund this training. I think all the training institutions in Spain and in Switzerland are very busy with the young Saudis. Actually, we asked them for more capacity, and they said we're very busy. We try to train them in cooperation with the UNWTO, using the UNWTO platforms and online training. Environment is on top of our agenda.
Yeah.
We make sure that the planet is protected, the society is protected. Yeah. The society were hit hard by the pandemic. We are trying to do whatever necessary to ensure what happened in the pandemic will not happen again. And based on the WTTC numbers, the international arrivals will grow by 300+% by 2030. And therefore, this industry is going to grow. Now we have to be part of it, we have to regulate it, and the private sector has to operate it, and we have to work together to ensure the relationship is a successful relationship.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Minister, and fantastic sum you're spending on your national tourism strategy, 800 billion over 10 years. So that is a lot of money, I think we can all agree. So we'll be watching Saudi Arabia with interest to see indeed if you reach those targets. Let's go to the other end of the scale, to Maldives. Abdullah Mosoom, you are the Minister of Tourism for your country, and you've had a very long established tourist sector. And lots of honeymooners go there, don't they? You know, you put a smile on their face, an even bigger smile on their face. And you've got these ambitions, though, to make the Maldives the most sustainable tourist destination. So you're thinking big. Why is that sustainability question so important to you?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great to be here. Yeah, I think the future of travel is what is leading us. The future is coming present very rapidly, and future tourists is the people who will lead. And Maldives knows that they have a very strong voice. And Maldives, over the last 50 years, we are celebrating 50 years of tourism, has established Maldives as a sustainable tourism destination, but that's not enough. So now we are going to focus on total inclusivity in terms of product ownership first. We want Maldivians, small and big, to own tourism product, and also we want the tourists across the globe to be able to experience Maldives. So we are embarking on a very aggressive accessibility plan for the Maldives. We want everybody to enjoy the Maldives. So people with special needs will be able to come and experience the Maldives. That is an area that we are focusing on. In terms of product development, we know that the future, even the investment banks, even the hoteliers, they focus on environment, social, and good governance practices. So it's a matter of just looking at these aspects, and Maldives tourism plays a very important role in our economy, 46% directly to the GDP and indirectly 80%. And we have full government support towards this industry, protecting its resource base and making sure that everybody benefit out of it. And in the engagement, we are also making sure that women and youth are really empowered. So all in all, I think Maldives is in the right path, because we believe that tourism is not only destination specific, tourism is global. We have to work in the global parameters, and we should be able to succeed, and hopefully Maldives is going to be the world's most sustainable tourism destination.
I'm going to hold you to that. And very quickly, Minister, so as you said, celebrating 50 years of tourism, you talk about the importance of inclusivity and so on. Very quickly, to a country that has just embarked on tourism, Saudi Arabia, only launched this national tourism strategy in 2019. Quick word of advice to Saudi Arabia.
Brother Al-Khatib, two of us work very closely together. I had the chance to visit the first tourism recovery summit. Well, the world was closed. Saudi hosted the first recovery summit with the UNWTO, and I went with some of my colleagues there, And on my journey, earlier they said, Minister Mausum, you are going to a place that is not so touristic. I said, okay, but let's see. So as soon as I land, just before I went to the hotel, my colleagues come and say, Minister, this place has changed. So Saudi Arabia is changing very rapidly, and I'm sure they are going to be a great destination too. Thank you.
So, you've already got a fan there, so you're doing well already. So let's just stay Saudi Arabia, we talked about, but let's come to Egypt. Because Egypt is a country, again, which has had a very, very long experience of being a tourist destination. And you're actually showing a fairly strong recovery. But one aspect, yeah, Minister, thank you so much. I know you're getting your deputy, though, to sit down in your place. Thank you so much, just in case we need to refer back to you. So Asad Riza, thank you so much indeed, welcome. So Egypt, strong recovery. How confident are you that this recovery will continue, given that slightly difficult background that I mentioned with obviously the impact of the Ukraine war and so on? And I also want you to mention this roots tourism that you've embarked on in Egypt, where you're trying to appeal to the Egyptian diaspora to say, come and visit the country of your origin. I think it's a great idea. And by the way, I was born not very far from you, so you can have a bit more time, but don't tell anybody.
I know. I
Yeah.
look forward
All
to
right.
that. Yeah, let's have dinner, actually. So, well, Zainab, obviously you follow my country very well, actually, and so true to all of the above. We've been seeing very good volume recovery each month this year. We have been getting closer to the peak volumes. In October, we passed the peak volumes. How do we sustain that recovery? We're focused on very specific behavioral segments. We understand now it's not about the demand. We know that there is demand out there for the Egyptian product. Certainly hundreds of millions of people in specific countries that we have named. We have shared with the private sector in our industry, and I'm allocating all the marketing budget to communicate to these specific segments in these 12 countries. And the private sector will know exactly when and where are we spending. So I think we're very confident about the continued recovery in 2023. On roots, I think there are 10 million Egyptians abroad. There is a ministry in Egypt. My colleague on the ministry actually is a big fan of the strategy to revive tourism in Egypt. She's actually taken my strategy around and showed it to the ambassadors, and I'm very, very happy. I'm proud of that. And it's always welcome to see the successful Egyptians outside Egypt actually come back and share information about their homeland. I think overall, the COP27 is also going to show great momentum. We have 19,000 rooms booked actually in Sharm el-Sheikh over the past couple of weeks. More than 120 heads of state have descended in Sharm el-Sheikh over the past couple of days. So we're very proud actually of what's happening in Sharm el-Sheikh, and I wish my colleagues on the Egyptian government, and certainly all the people who are engaged in what the COP is doing to actually reach concrete results this time around.
I mean, it's a real showcase for you in Egypt as to how you can absorb huge numbers of visitors. You've got to get your infrastructure right and so on. But in terms, very quickly, of rethinking tourism, I mean, are you doing anything radically different, or is it just more of the same?
Well, what we're trying to do really is to try to fix some of the things that have been hindering the supply side. Investment climate for tourism. We need 300,000 more rooms actually to be able to get to 30 million tourists in Egypt. We need to triple the number of aviation seats flying into Egypt. And we need to be able to offer the right experience for tourists in Egypt. But it's not only about the entertainment, the nightlife, and it's about what I mean by the experience. I mean the ability to truly experience the culture and the people of Egypt. Be able to engage in discussions and be experiential in walking around the streets that I love in my hometown, Cairo. It's a magnificent city to walk around, but it has to offer the right experience to the tourists.
That your ambitions, the ambitions you have the infrastructure to meet those ambitions. Let me go to Europe, to you, Dr. Nicola Brynjac. You are the Minister of Tourism for Croatia. And although Croatia depends on tourism more than any other EU country, you still have great expansionist plans for your country. So just mindful of what the Minister from Egypt has said there, to what extent do your expansion plans match what you can offer in terms of infrastructure? You've got to have the hotels, you've got to have the transport, you've got to have the, the water resources and all the rest of it. So, and then you've also got to create the value chains, which are very important for developing the economy. So how are you trying to do all that in Croatia?
Yes, thank you for your question. This is the reason why we last week adopted the most important document for Croatian tourism, and that is the Sustainable Strategy Development for Croatian tourism until 2030. And when we now think about tourism, we think about sustainability. We think about all of the three pillars of sustainability: social, economic, and ecological pillars, which are most important for us. And what we did with this new strategy, we brought 4 important goals, which are equally important to us. First goal is development of year-round tourism in Croatia with regional balanced development. Second is tourism that keeps and takes care of climate and environmental aspects. The third one is the tourism that is innovative and competitive, and resilient tourism. We saw how important it is to be resilient. And then what we did, every goal is connected with the source of funding. With EU, from the European Commission, we got the funds from the National Recovery and Resilience Plan directly for the tourism sector for the first time, for all of the companies, for all of the hospitality sector, small, medium, large, and then also for the multi-annual financial framework. We got a national envelope for tourism sector, also for the first time, direct investments. And what we did, we connected all of the investments. They have to be green and digital. They must be green and digital according to all of the ecological criteria. For example, you could have also greenfield and brownfield investments, but they must be according to the all highest level of standards, ecological standards. And as we heard, and we know, all of us know very well that tourism is changing very rapidly, very quickly. It's evolving, and for us, I think it is for all of us, I think it is important that we see what Mr. Zurab from the beginning was saying about rethinking of tourism. I think that for all of us, rethinking must be evolution from measuring growth and profit to measuring sustainable development. And that is the key for tourism sector, I think.
Right, very interesting. Let me come to you in Portugal, Rita Marques. I feel I've been ignoring this side a bit, haven't I? They're sucking up all the oxygen from you, but interesting what the Minister from Croatia has said there, because you've also launched a new, build for the future kind of plan to put Portugal at the top of tourism in Europe. But mindful again of what the Minister from Croatia said, you can't just seek the profits and seek the jobs and so on. You've got to ensure you strike that right balance between the ecological, the social and the economic, as Dr. Brynjac said. So just tell us a bit about how you are rethinking these expansionary plans of yours in Portugal.
Well, first of all, thank you for the nice opportunity to be here with all these great leaders of tourism. First of all, a big thank you to Julia and Zorab. I think it's wonderful for us to show to the world that we are very united towards the recovery of tourism. Now, going back to the question, yes, we do have a plan. I guess most of us have a plan. It's a good idea to have one at least. But I would like very much to focus that plan on social parts, because I think Julia said it all, Tourism is about inclusion, it's about diversity, and so when we think ahead of times, when we think about the evolution of tourism, we really need to show that we are going greener, yes, that's for sure, but most of all, we need to be very focused on the social parts, because there is a pain in the industry, and we've not addressed that yet. that's the shortage of talent. We need people in order for us to continue to grow. We needed people to be there in the industry. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, we lost, most of us, 20% of our workforce. So yes, all of us want to grow, but we don't have, the right people in the industry, then we'll have an issue, a big pain. So I would like to address what we have been doing in the social part. So we know that Europe is getting old. Portugal, is getting old. But we do have an opportunity here with the Portuguese-speaking countries. So we are more than 250 million people in the world that speak Portuguese. So basically what we are trying to do is to instigate all those to look to Portugal as a nice place to work from, to be in the industry. And so basically we created a new type of visa, for instance, that allows people to be working in Portugal. And of course, there's a huge priority on training because we want these people to serve with high quality, quality standards.
Speak into the microphone just a bit better.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so going back to the social part and social sustainability, because you mentioned that there is, triple dimension when you talk about sustainability, I guess that the trickiest part is, in fact, social sustainability. So what can we do more in order to ensure that, yes, we are green, that we have economic, sustainable business models, but what about the social part, the diversity, trying to import people to work in the industry, giving them the training standards that all of us want to meet. And that's pretty much our focus. And I think these messages goes very well with the message that Portugal wants to address, that Portugal is a very open-minded country, that we are very open to diversity, a very positive country as far as inclusion is concerned. And we are starting with the workforce because if we don't address that type of people, then we cannot show that that we are such a country for the tourists themselves.
Yeah. Very interesting. You see the job creation and so on, tourism being very much a strong plank in your plans for economic development and recovery. Interesting what you said about wanting to be a destination for people who want to work. Can I talk to you about finding a nice office in Lisbon for myself?
Sure.
Yeah.
By the way, we do have a new visa for digital nomads, so if you are interested, you are most welcome to join us.
My surname means Bedouin, nomad, so I'm very happy to avail myself of that service. So we'll have a bilateral later.
Okay.
Oh, nice office in Lisbon. Fatima Al-Sayrafi, you're the Minister for Bahrain. So clearly we've heard from Rita Marquez there about how important a national tourism strategy is in actually, helping to provide employment for people in the country and so on. But in Bahrain, you're also looking at tourism as a way of diversifying your GDP. And you're looking at all sorts of tourism, aren't you? Medical tourism, cultural tourism, marine tourism, and so on. So just tell us how you are rethinking tourism in Bahrain.
Thank you, Zainab, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you here today in this very important summit. And Bahrain very early on identified the importance of tourism in diversifying the economy. Last year, when Bahrain launched its economic recovery plan, a key component to that was actually the tourism strategy that we launched. And that tourism strategy in itself focused on how we can increase the tourism contribution in the GDP. Measuring how Bahrain has done since the launch of the strategy till today, we noticed that we have not only come back to the levels of 2019, but we have also surpassed those levels. We were very recently looking at the economic indicators of the tourism inflows in Bahrain compared to the Q3 of 2019 and Q3 of this year. And we noticed that there's a huge spike when it comes to that, to approximately 20%. Interestingly enough, Zainab, you mentioned that Bahrain is also focusing on a number of pillars. And I really believe that there's a silver lining to the pandemic because it gave us a chance to rethink how we can transform tourism into the next level. So that's when Bahrain identified the key opportunities that it has to capitalize on what are the key components that makes Bahrain different. Bahrain is the only island in the region, and that's one of the main reasons why we're focusing on the marine pillar and how to position ourselves as an island destination. And we have different projects that are underway and that we have have developed and that we are going to launch very soon. Bahrain has also been known as a trade hub in the region as well. And that's one of the reasons why we are going to launch in November 21, one of the biggest exhibition centers in the region that is going to be a MICE game changer when it comes to positioning Bahrain. But more importantly, Zainab, and I want to stress on a few points that Julia and Zurab mentioned, and also His Excellency Ahmed Al-Khatib. And I think that this point is a unified point between all of us in the government. And the government does have a vital role to play when it comes to transforming how people rethink and how people visit tourism, which is a human capital component. We can't ignore the fact that without developing that component, tourism will not only not reach the levels of 2019, but will go backwards. Yes, we have been talking about digital transformation, about innovation, about adopting new technologies, and all of that is really important. But what is really the main driver of all of that? It's human capital. And that's why in the Kingdom of Bahrain, we have invested heavily in developing that human capital. And from time to time, whenever I see tourists in Bahrain, I do walk up to them and ask them, what will make you come back to Bahrain? And the answer is always the same. It's the people of Bahrain that will make them come back to Bahrain. And as the Minister of Tourism and as a Bahraini, I'm very humbled and honored that the people of Bahrain are the main assets of tourism that will make people come back.
Lovely that is, yes, very hospitable. Popular lady here, yes. A round of applause for you there. But just very quickly, do you see your strategy resting more on, because you have a lot of regional tourists, don't you, in Bahrain, regional or global visitors you're seeking to attract?
So Zainab, once we launched the strategy, we identified 19 target markets.
Okay.
Mainly, most of the target markets are regional, but we're also branching out to international tourists as well. And one of the key things that Bahrain did, and that we have found very successful, is we collaborated with different travel agents in those 19 target markets to promote and market Bahrain. But not only that, we have also partnered with many countries in the region so that we can promote Bahrain as a tourism destination as well. So capitalizing on the successes of other countries, because I believe that we're all interdependent, has been a real game changer when it comes to attracting tourists to Bahrain.
Yeah, thank you. It's just important to get that fact that Bahrain has benefited greatly from regional tourism, but now you have plans to attract the international market too. You mentioned the fact that Bahrain obviously means two rivers and that, your offer is very important in terms of beach holidays. And Mauritius, you are also, of course, very big in that area. And we have with us the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Housing and Minister of Tourism for Mauritius, Louis Stephen Obigadu. Very nice to have you with us, Deputy Prime Minister. So when we're talking about sustainability, green sustainability is important, but when you have a marine offer, you've got to make sure that your blue credentials are also good. So in terms of looking to the future, how are you also balancing the green and the blue together?
Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody in the room. Balancing the green and the blue, that's deeply philosophical, isn't it? Anyway, Mauritius has been traditionally known as a sea resort. Sun, sea, and sand, of course. Increasingly, one of the lessons we've drawn from COVID is the importance of diversifying the tourism offer. So we have the advantage within the Republic of Mauritius of having coral islands, but the main island is volcanic. So we have the inland tourism, hiking, the mountains, the lakes, the forests, and we're looking at developing that within the global perspective of greening our tourism, more sustainability in energy generation, rainwater harvesting, desalination of water, energy saving, so more effective use of energy, waste disposal, recycling. I think Mauritius, as other colleagues have said, is rising to the challenge of sustainability. But then again, Zainab Badawi, I think it's important to make the point that our challenges are national. We need to act fast, act effectively within our own countries so that tourism, which was a problem as a result of COVID, becomes now a driver of economic growth. It becomes part of the solution. But the solution cannot be only local. And I think one of the lessons we need to draw from COVID, and I was telling our colleague from Portugal earlier that I think we run the risk of forgetting too quickly the lessons from COVID. So one of the lessons is that the problems are global. When we were hit by a health pandemic, global pandemic, hit by the lack of health research, of vaccines, the difficulty to develop health protocols, and faced with blanket travel bans. Likewise, in terms of confronting the challenge, of rising to the challenge of greening tourism, we need to act collectively. COP27 is great. It brings attention to focus on climate change, but we as tourism need to be part of that debate. Rethinking tourism means also looking beyond tourism, linking up with the SDGs, with climate change, and also with the war situation, so that tourism nurtures a culture of peace. And I think we're ideally located to build friendship amongst peoples, understanding in the face of racism, xenophobia, extremism, and war.
Yeah, I mean, I said at the outset, the power of tourism has many dimensions, and that's certainly building bridges and promoting greater cultural understanding, and within a context of culture of peace is very, very important. But just very quickly, the fact that you are Deputy Prime Minister and also Minister of Housing, and we heard Zorab say that, you've got to have a pan-governmental approach across all departments and not just see the Minister of Tourism operating in a kind of silo. So how far do you find that it's easier for you to be an advocate for tourism and having this kind of joined up government thinking that is so crucial because of your additional responsibilities?
Great, that gives me the opportunity again to drive this point that we need to look beyond tourism to rebuild tourism. I was the Minister of Tourism, but I also had to drive the national vaccination strategy. So we linked tourism to health in building health protocols, in vaccinating our population, so that when we eventually opened up after 20 months, during which time our borders were closed, we presented ourselves to the world as a safe destination. So intersectoral linkages was a key lesson of COVID, linking environment to health, to tourism, to land transport, to air transport, and of course to the economic rebound post-COVID. Building intersectoral linkages, but also PPP, working together with the private sector. We've built tourism on the basis of PPP. We nurtured resilience on the basis of PPP, and we're relaunching tourism with a very close public-private partnership. And collaboration in tourism is, again, a matter for global collaboration. I'm delighted to be working with Zurab and His Excellency Minister Albert Khatib within the World Tourism Organization to build up solidarity. I think competition, Zainab, tourism has for very long been seen as a competition between our countries to gain greater shares of the markets at the expense of the other. But the future is about cooperation and solidarity. We need to rethink and rebuild tourism together as one.
May I suggest another ministry to your portfolio, Deputy PM? Minister for Integration and Cooperation would suit you just fine. So thank you. On that point, let me come to you, Vasilis Kikilias, Minister of Tourism for Greece, because what do you make of that very, very integrated approach that the Deputy PM is advocating there? Because in Greece, a fifth of the economy depends on tourism, 1 in 5 jobs, so economically, very, very critical sector for you. But how far are you trying to integrate it right across just about everything you do in Greece?
Thank you very, very much. First of all, that's a very, very noble approach, because more or less we're all compatible, excellencies and dear colleagues, to what our aims and targets are. So yes, it's 25% of our GDP. It involves primary sector, the goods from the Greek land. 3 million Brits have tasted these goods this year, are linked to our restaurants and tavernas and our hotels, which we use it, and then the commerce sector, wherever it's close to a touristic region or city or island. It's a huge raise of revenues, and then real estate and the building industry, 80 professions around that. 8 out of 10 investments nowadays in Greece are touristic investments, and of course, hundreds of thousands of workers. Big issue, what are we going to do with globally what is lacking out of what we lost through the pandemic. So definitely they intervene, and we talk about sustainability. I'd like just for 30 seconds to state out that infrastructures are a key factor of that. So recycling, waste disposal, how we use our water, and when we don't have it, what we do, investments in ports, harbors, berth allocation in terms of the cruising industry, green and blue economy, low carbon emission in terms of airline companies and airline carriers. These are all matters that we discuss. Budget, of course. Excellency, you're highly privileged, quite a number. The rest of us are trying to file budgets, of course, Croatia and Portugal and us from the resilient funds. It's very, very tempting to see how we can blend the private sector, which we respect a lot, with the public sector, so PPP is a solution. Awareness about the climate, green and blue economy, yes, they can be merged together. And of course, there's a legacy to the next generation, and there's a legacy to the sector, and it all adds up to the people, I agree. So Greek philoxenia, which is the deeper need since, I don't know, the ancient times, to host travelers and foreigners and strangers and give them food, shelter, and a bed to sleep, and then off they go, is a big part of our tradition, which we're not ready to just give away. So, of course, sustainable touristic model, yes. Of course, working together with everybody, but deep down it's about the people. It's about tradition, it's about new ways that you can help new generations feel the same sentiment. It's a state of mind, it's a unique experience. This is it, a unique experience that we want to reserve. Thank you.
Well, I love your country. I'm a regular visitor to Greece. Oh, you're getting some applause too. You're doing well here. But yes, you echoed what the Deputy Prime Minister Mauritius says about the importance of co-investment in those PPPs, the private-public partnerships, and again, sustainability. Let me come to you, Miguel Marquez. You're the Minister or Secretary, as you say, for Tourism in Mexico. And Mexico, I mean, you have surpassed pre-COVID levels, which is amazing. You've got all these tourists coming back. But you do face environmental challenges, and just listening to what the Minister from Greece is saying about you've got to get, your waste disposal right and all the rest of it. Just tell us how you are, approaching your tourism strategy in terms of ensuring that it's as sustainable as it could be.
Yes, first of all, I would like to say hello all my colleagues, and that's a pleasure to be with all of you. And let me tell you something. That at the beginning of the pandemic, it was terrible for Mexico because we were growing 9% in economic revenue and also in the tourist flow. But suddenly, everything changed. But we think that with the big problems, we have to innovate. So what we have done is the President of Mexico said, don't make any restriction about the international flights. The number second is that you have to be fast in order to organize the sanitarian protocols in order to put it all over the place. No death, no more money from the banks like it used to be a long time ago. But also, not cancel your important tianguis turístico. We innovate with digital tianguis, our main party of tourism, that by the way is going to be next March. in Mexico City. And also, there were the money in order to make the reservation for the vaccination. So we start to improve ourselves. We never lose get in touch with the wholesalers. We kept in touch with them. And also, we were working in the new products. I always says that the nations that better preserve their environment and also to keep their culture, their idiosyncrasy, the handcrafts, that's what the people wants to see. There will be the nations that will reach the goal of the great benefit of this beautiful industry that is tourism. So now we are working in a new products. Now, everything that has been with pandemic, that we now in the second place and as a tourist flow, and on the number 9 into the revenue, that's nothing. We have to believe that if we want to reach our goal, it's a big challenge to start to organizing with a new products. Not everything is gonna be like it used to be, because the tourism profile had been changed already. So we are making new products. There were very abandoned places in the south of Mexico. So by the end of the next year, we're having the Mayan strain with more than 950 miles, with 20 stations, that you will be able to pass by 190 very high impact products. So we are working to be fair, because it's not only, when I was studying tourism a long time ago, in 1971, I learned from a book that the tourism has to be fair with the local place. But suddenly I saw that in my country, the 92% of our tourism, they focus only in 6 different places, when we have 253 tourist cities, which of those amount 130 are magical towns. So now we are start to organizing from the north to south with the new products, because we believe that the tourism profile had been changed after the pandemic.
Right.
So that's what we're doing.
You're diversifying your product and making a bigger offer, which will require a lot of investment. So let me come to you, Niels Olsen, in Ecuador, because the government of Ecuador is indeed pouring quite a lot of money now into building its tourism sector, and you're building a metro in Quito to make sure you've got the infrastructure to transport people and so on. So I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit more about the role of government, because we are seeing, I mean, you know, even today in the newspapers, we're seeing, you know, a group of people in the aviation industry saying, look, to governments, to the British government, if you want us to develop more green aviation fuel, we're going to need public subsidies for quite a long time. We cannot do it alone. So there you are, receiving more money from government and so on. So just perhaps expand a little bit on the importance of government involvement if you do want to develop tourism in a sustainable way.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us here. I have a problem with my voice, so I'm going to try to be as brief and efficient as possible. So one of the biggest challenges that we have in Ecuador is the inconsistency that goes from one government to the other. So one government comes in and they have a great plan, but then a new government comes in and they don't want to use that plan again because the private sector and the academia is not involved. Right now we are building, well, we've been in this administration for a little bit over a year, so we're building a plan together with the private sector and the academia, and somehow make it as strong as possible so it can survive from one government to the other. There's a lot of things that we need to catch up in Ecuador. So for over 10 years, Ecuador hasn't been very active or aggressive in promoting the country. I come from the private sector, and every time I visit a travel show, before being the minister, the message was always the same. Why is Ecuador not promoting the country? Ecuador is such a beautiful destination, amazing people. The diversity that we have, it's incredible, that we really need to stop being the perfect stranger and have the position that it deserves. So in our administration at the moment, we're working very hard on air connectivity. We're not doing subsidize, but we're creating incentives. So for new airlines who come in and fly to Ecuador, the Minister of Tourism will contribute up to $1 million on promotion so we can bring up the occupancy numbers in the seats. We have also reduced the taxes in different airports of Ecuador. Again, this is something that we've been doing the last year. So as you know, the aviation industry takes some time to create effect. We're also working on promoting the country. We finally have, for us in Ecuador, it's a really important budget, which is 47 million to invest from 2022 up to 2025. We're focusing on the high yield traveler. So that not only means the luxury segment, but also the backpacker, for example. The backpacking industry is as important as the luxury segment. Backpackers stay in a destination for longer periods of time. Many times they are choosing to consume in local businesses, for example. They usually go off the beaten path. But again, the luxury segment is very important as well. They inject more money more money in fewer nights. But we're trying, again, to attract the high-yield traveler to come and connect with the local culture, try the local cuisine, and have authentic experiences as well. And regarding innovation, we have already, for the 27th of September, the International Tourism Day, as an invitation of the UNWTO to Rethink Tourism. We launched the Nomad Visa in Ecuador. That's already active. We have already over 500 nomad travelers traveling from Ecuador in different locations. So that's great. And we are also working, we're about to present to the Congress a new chapter for economic incentives for high quality tourism investment that focus on using tourism as a vehicle for conservation and development. That is, wherever there is tourism, there has to be a positive impact. Otherwise, there shouldn't be tourism.
Very interesting. So the conservation model is a very important one for you. Well, I've never visited Ecuador. Interesting to hear what you had to say. But if I did, I think I'd go for the luxury sector, not the backpacking experience. So, you know, yeah. My backpacking days, I think, are over. But I want to go to some other ministers whom we have just sitting behind you. But just very quickly, Julia, do you? I mean, you've heard what the ministers have said here. Is there anything that resonated with you? Anything new or anything you want to pick up on?
Well, first of all, I thought there was such a great energy and positivism, which is incredible. And I think one of the things that we've all been saying that I thought so well articulated by His Excellency from Mexico was that real preservation of cultures and people and idiosyncrasies. And I think what governments at a senior level are realizing now, that is the value of tourism. Tourism used to be kind of seen as it comes into your country and it's this bland blanket that kind of wipes out the culture was there, and then the tourists will always get that wherever they go. And now it's totally flipped the other way. And so I think people see that countries want to be proud of their own identity. They want to make sure that their people have decent jobs and a decent future, and travel and tourism delivers that. So I thought it was very, very positive. Yeah. And I also agree that some countries have more money than other countries. So, you know, it really is true that for some tourism ministers, we are scrabbling around, and that's why partnerships with private sector is really important. Yeah. One other thing I just want to mention from Ecuador was the importance of aviation. I think sometimes aviation gets left out of our travel and tourism discussions, not least because often within governments it falls into a different department. Not always, but sometimes it's in transport. And actually the development of SAF, as the sustainable aviation fuel plants. We need 3,000 of them. Yeah. We need to show global leadership. So you can say, if you come to my country, you will be flying on an aeroplane that has sustainable aviation fuel. Yes, hydrogen will be there. Yes, electrics, but not immediately around the corner. So SAF is something we need to use the monies that are available for sustainability and get it into your business plans.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you for that.
small
No,
thing.
you're absolutely right. I mean, aviation fuel, making it more sustainable is one of the hardest challenges, certainly for long distances, and you're absolutely right that it should be integrated into it. Thank you. I think I have got, just sitting there, the Cristina Garcia Frasco from the Philippines. Could we get a microphone to the Minister, please, Minister of Tourism? Just very quickly, I think Philippines has done quite well in terms of its domestic travel, gone up dramatically, but obviously Asia is part of the world where you've had COVID restrictions in much longer than in other parts of the world. So just give us a quick thumbnail sketch of your perspective from the Philippines.
Thank you very much for giving Asia a voice in this forum. It's a very great opportunity for me to be here. Domestic tourism has played a critical role in our country in that in 2019, we had over 122 million domestic tourists come into our country. However, the problem brought forth by the pandemic was that that was reduced by over 73%. And we've seen a gradual uptick on it at 37 million domestic tourists in 2021. I come from the province of Cebu, where the lifeblood of the economy is tourism. And we saw the value of domestic tourists in that they were able to sustain our economy in the midst of international lockdowns. And therefore, the strategy to be employed by this new administration in the Philippines is to maximize domestic tourism, to be able to equalize tourism promotion development throughout and across our 16 regions and our 81 provinces all over the Philippines, to give attention and promotion as well as development not only to our key destinations but as well as our lesser known destinations. After all, we have 7,641 beautiful islands in the Philippines that are all worthy of a visit, whether from domestic or international tourists.
Thank you. That domestic travel, the staycations, very, very important aspect, which is something that very much came to the fore post-COVID. I don't know if I've got William Rodriguez, the Minister of Tourism from Costa Rica. You're there. Sir, would you like to make a brief comment? If we could hand the microphone to Mr. Rodriguez, please. Thank you.
Well, I think she's absolutely right. Domestic tourism is a key factor, especially when the tourists from abroad lack in our countries during the pandemic. So I think we have to focus our attention in the future not only in the international tourism, but we have to promote in a new way the domestic tourism. I think is a key factor in the future.
Yeah, that's one of the ways that tourism has been transformed. Let me again see if we got the Minister of Tourism from Ethiopia with us. Yes. Would you like to say a word, Mrs. Salamawit Dawit Kamali, picking up what the Secretary General of the World Tourism Organization said? Tourism needs stability in order to flourish, and we salute the peace efforts in your country, and we hope that the people of Ethiopia get the peace and prosperity they deserve. You've so many cultural heritage sites in Ethiopia and so on, so just tell us how you're going to be rebuilding your offer.
Thank you very much again. It's wonderful to be here and share some views. In Ethiopia, tourism didn't get much attention for the most part, but since the new administration came to power, one of the things we focused on is on making tourism one of the pillars of the economy, so that we also diversify the economy. So with that, is being part of the homegrown economic reform helped the tourism sector with, as you all said, making it the focus of all of government instead of only the ministry. So one of the things we are doing is we know that we have a lot of homework in terms of developing new tourism products, in terms of showcasing the tourism products we have. So one of the things we are doing is we are investing as we speak from the government sector and also from the public sector, and we are encouraging the private sector as well. So PPP is playing a key role. So while we are rebuilding, while we are bringing to life new tourism products and showcasing the cultural heritages that we have, we are going to be focusing on that. And as the Secretary General said, tourism is a powerful force for peace. So we are going to be encouraging domestic tourism in order to bring people together and build peace, using it as a vehicle of peace. So
we wish you all the best. We wish you all the best in those peace-building efforts and as well reviving your tourism. So Ethiopia is now open for tourism, it seems. I just want to check if we have also from Nicaragua, the Minister, Anasha Campbell. Nicaragua, would you like to have a quick word? I understand American Airlines flights resume to Nicaragua this month, which should give you a bit of a boost.
Yes, thank you very much. In Nicaragua's case, for us, tourism has always been a means for the betterment of quality of life of the Nicaraguan people, who are the center of our strategy and plan. I believe that COVID-19 also left a lot of lessons learned. One of them was to strengthen that pride of your heritage, of your identity, of your culture, of your gastronomy. Evidently, the domestic tourism played a key role, because for many years, I believe in our case, our private sector was more focused on international arrivals. And so it gave us that opportunity to see the importance also that the Nicaraguan play in tourism. And for us, it is a balance between domestic tourism and international arrivals. So far, we have had a 60% of recovery in reference with numbers of 2019. Obviously, connectivity has been one of our challenges. And yes, American Airlines will be back the 30th of November, but also Spirit and United would be Spirit in December and United in January. So we're getting back on track, and we're very positive of the drive that tourism has been in our economy, but mainly in the human development of the Nicaraguan people, and contributing also to poverty alleviation in our country.
Again, picking up the point that the Minister from Mauritius made about harnessing the power of tourism to achieving the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. I don't want to be accused of any ministerial discrimination, so is there any other Minister of Tourism lurking in this room who hasn't spoken? Introduce yourself, please, sir, and just take the microphone. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Clayton Bartolo, Maltese Tourism Minister.
Sorry, for who?
Malta.
Malta.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Coming from a small island state in the Mediterranean, for us connectivity is key. So that is why we are working hard on ensuring that flights resume, and now we are reaching a very good percentage, and our recovery is in fact being underlined by a very strong seat load factor. So what we are noticing is that we are managing through our marketing campaigns to ensure that the airplanes which are coming to and leaving Malta, we are actually filling up more seats. So when compared to prior to the pandemic, we had about a 70 percentile seat load factor. Now this has gone up to 90%, and in some cases it is even surpassing the 95 percentile mark, meaning that we understand the importance of connectivity. However, another important aspect which we are working on is in fact education. As the Secretary General has mentioned, we will be investing very heavily in ensuring that tourism becomes the main employer in our economy, and we want to attract young people towards tourism as a career. I started my career in tourism in a family business, so I fully understand the importance of having a local population who appreciate tourism, and so we need to respect the host population, and this will be done even by investing in our tourism products.
Right, thank
because
you.
when we do that, we are not
Yep.
only investing for our tourists, but we are also leaving a better environment for our local families and businesses. And that is where harnessing the government power as a whole comes in, and that is what we'll be doing in the coming months.
Thank you so much. A view there from Malta about elevating the tourist experience and also the importance of training and education. I think we also have the Minister of Tourism from Bulgaria, Ilin Dimitrov. I think Bulgaria, you're seeing quite a lot of government grants to promote tourism and develop tourism in your country, particularly in the green energy area. So just a quick word from you, please.
So thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. So I will speak about rethinking of tourism in Bulgaria and how we do this. First, we have a problem, and this problem is very big. We have sea, we have ski, we have mountains, we have healing mineral water, we have history, 13th Europe, and somehow we are not well known. Somehow we are the most well kept secret after the question who killed Kennedy. So this is very important for us to open. Second thing, having all these things in Bulgaria doesn't seem to get the people to understand how important it is to be sustainable and to keep the resources. So we have water, we must start to think how to keep her. And third thing in rethinking of tourism for me and for my plans, it is, okay, I like backpackers, but when they sleep in 2-star hotels, they use the same amount of water and energy and electricity as the people who sleep in 5-star hotels. But when they leave the money in the 2-star hotels, we don't have the funds to invest them into the sustainability and renewing. So my main target is how to increase our quality and how to show the world that we can provide very, very good and very quality tourism service. So thank you very much for being here. Great forum.
Thank you. Yeah, or somebody else putting their hand up there. Are you a minister? Only ministers of tourism? Oh, thank you, sir. Sorry, do introduce yourself.
I'm Michael Usi, Minister of Tourism from Malawi.
Malawi.
Malawi, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, tourism can be associated with many things, but ultimately tourism is about happiness. For one to be happy, you need to have peace. So what Malawi has done has taken a deliberate action to invest in peace, so that tourism becomes a way of life, not just business. To do with this, we are also looking at culture, not just as a way of life again, but as a product for tourism. When you come to Malawi, the first thing that will greet you is peace, the warmth of Malawians. That's why it's called the warm heart of Africa. Come to Malawi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Oh, I think everybody put their hands up if they said that tourism is about promoting happiness for the traveller and also for the host communities. Don't you all agree? I think he deserves a round of applause for that. Thank you. Another minister. Is this the last minister from Rwanda? Please introduce yourself. Yes, just behind me, Minister for Rwanda.
Thank you very much. My name is Michaela Rukwizangoga. So in Rwanda, just as anyone, we've been affected by COVID as well. But as we speak, we are now at 86% recovery compared to 2019, which is very good, and we keep pushing. Our country is focused on sustainability, on conservation. The volcano park, where we have the mountain gorilla, has seen an increase in the population of the gorilla. From we're now at 350 gorillas in our park, and we're thinking of expanding the park. And that's one of the biggest projects of the government at the moment. Rwanda is visa-free world, so you can have your visa on arrival. For some countries, it's completely free. For other countries, it's a simple procedure, and you land. And that has enabled us to develop our MICE industry. We attract a lot of events, and our convention center is fully booked for this year and for next year. So the future is bright, and we look forward to do more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. And I've seen the gorillas in the mist in the Virunga National Park in Rwanda. Oh my goodness, yes, well worth the visit. So, and the importance of visa-free travel, or at least easy visas, a very important one. I've got a couple of voices from industry who I'd like to gauge what they think about our discussion this morning. So Ariane Gorin, you're president of Expedia, very strong, sustainable, there you are, sorry. Excuse my back, Ariane, I do beg your pardon, but you have a very strong emphasis on sustainable tourism, don't you? Just a quick comment from you, please.
We do, and in fact, I would say there have been two really big things that we've done over the last few years. One is around the traveler experience. I think we heard from the Secretary General about, you know, when tourism wins, sort of the world wins. We think at Expedia, when the traveler wins, we all win. And it's certainly been trying for travelers, whether it's their experience at airports, whether it's their experience with the staffing at properties. So we've put a lot of energy into how can we help our partners, our hotel partners, our airlines, our destinations, in getting feedback of what is the traveler experience and improving it. So what data can we provide? What automation can we put in place? And what information can we even give travelers about what to expect when they are in a destination? So that's the first thing. The second thing is something we call Open World and our Open World platform. At Expedia, actually a quarter of our business is through other partners. We have our own brands, and then we power many other partners. And we realize that we have a lot of technology assets that we can bring to partners to help them be successful on the traveler experience. We heard about innovation, so I think we've come out of COVID thinking a lot about how do we bring our technology to help partners, to help guest experience, and that can be also towards sustainability. It can be toward inclusion. We've just introduced a new accessibility filter, and we've seen 80% increase in use of it. And I know we've talked a bunch about inclusion, sustainability, and we think that we can play a role to not only help as the industry is coming up with standards, but then communicate that to travelers. And I would just end with, it's been wonderful to hear about what all of the destinations are doing. And we want to work with all of you to say, how do we help you get your message out to all of the travelers out there? Because even if tourism turned quite domestic the last couple of years, we know that international has come back with a vengeance, maybe I would say. And so how do we help you in attracting the travelers that you're looking for what you specifically have to offer? So thank you.
Very good. You're going to have a load of people beating their path to your door now you've said that. But yes, everybody's love of travel is not diminished throughout COVID. We've also got John Rowley, who's the founder and CEO of the Open Network Exchange. John, are you there? John, we've heard a lot about the role that innovation and digital technology will play in rethinking tourism, and you offer tech-based solutions for the travel and hospitality industry. So just give us some comments on what you've heard this morning.
Certainly, thank you. We haven't talked too much about technology. We've been talking a lot about people and cultures, which is really what tourism is, the heart of everything. I agree with that completely. We have I'm from the United States. You can probably tell that from my lack of accent, but the U.S. is very naive about tourism compared to the rest of the world. But we have a border state in Mexico, and it is what I would call a bedroom community. Mexico is our place to go. So Mexico has a lot of coastline. It borders the Caribbean, Yucatan Peninsula, and just that one destination in Cancun and Cozumel, we've done industry partnerships for both the cruise lines and the airlines, as well as the individual states. So they have beautiful destinations, resorts, history, and they've kept open. It didn't get talked about too much, but they have a lot of domestic tourism in Mexico from their own nationality and their own people, but they also have the whole United States going all over Mexico and loving it, and they have for years and years. They kept the border open, and we're so grateful for that. The border was open, tourism, just the area of Cancun, state of Quintana Roo. Cancun itself has over 13 million tourists coming to it. And so that takes flights, you think, but actually 6.5 million people come by cruise to Cozumel and then transfer in the island, Cozumel, and then go over to Cancun and that destination. The West Coast is also a big destination. California is our largest populated state, and California goes to Mexico continuously. So that's all down on the Pacific Ocean seaboard. So I would just say the marriage between industry and the government, and governments like Mexico that keep open, they invite tourism, is very fundamental. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, John, and reminding us about the importance of the role of digital technology and so on. I think we've also got Inga Hubrechts from Radisson. There you are, Inga. Hi, nice to see you. So you're one of the global senior VPs with responsibility for business and safety. I know you're doing quite a lot in terms of your role in combating climate change and so on at Radisson, but talk about wherever you want to. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for having Radisson Hotel Group as one of the voices of the private sector. We are one of the largest hotel groups, and we have hotels in all of the destinations represented by the excellencies today. I want to bring it back to the enormous role that we have and potential to reach the hearts and the minds of the travelers, to bring them to responsible travel. Because, I don't know if you know, but Mahatma Gandhi said, travel is the language of peace. And I think it can also be the language of prosperity. But it's high time that we start speaking the same language when we talk about responsible tourism. Because you know that study after study shows that more than 70% of travelers want to travel responsibly, but they don't know how. So what I would say is there are today more frameworks about responsible tourism than there are stars in the universe. Every country, every destination, every company, every booking platform all want to define their own definition of what it means to travel responsibly. And I think we've done a great job at Radisson. We are committed to net zero by 2050, but how do you translate that to a traveler? So we believe in collaboration, not competitiveness when we're talking about sustainability. So in the subsector of hospitality, we have defined a solution of this framework to net positive hospitality, starting with hotel sustainability basics, and in 4 steps, you take it to net positive. And this framework exists. It can actually be used. It can actually be used to communicate to the traveler what responsible hospitality means. So I would call on that framework not to have another acronym in the industry, but actually to have something, to have all these countries work together with the private sector, to have a clear green star system so that we cut through the confusion and we convince these more than 1 billion international travelers to book responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Inga. So, panel, I'm just going to come to all of you for just a 1-minute quick response. We've heard a lot today. We just heard Inga there talking about the importance of building partnerships with the private sector. We've talked about mainstreaming travel and tourism into domestic political agendas and also the global agenda. We've heard about sustainable tourism development and also, fostering knowledge and education and capacity building when it comes to training the workforce, also including new voices, young people, especially countries that have got very young populations, and also advancing tourism so it helps achieve poverty reduction along the lines of the Sustainable Development Goals and so on. So you've all talked, but I want you all very quickly just to say, when it comes to rethinking tourism, what one major change would you prioritize? Saudi Arabia, you spoke first, so you're going to speak first again. It means you have very little time to think about your one major change, and all of you just have a minute, starting with you, and then I'll finish with you, Zorab, for some closing remarks. Minister Al-Khatib.
Thank you, Zainab. What we all know, tourism will grow, for sure. Now we need to have... we need to be responsible, and we have to protect this planet. The sustainability should be on top of everyone's agenda. It is on top of the Saudi government agenda. We have launched this Saudi Green Initiative. We have a conference in Sharm el-Sheikh in the 11th and 12th that talks about sustainability, and sustainability, as my colleague said, social, environment, and
and economic sustainability. For sustainability is important. Connectivity is also important. We need to connect the countries and the islands who really need tourism and relies on tourism a lot in fighting poverty. The number one goal in the UN sustainability is fighting poverty, and therefore we have to make sure that we create jobs in the villages, we create jobs for women and for youth.
Very clear. Thank you very much indeed, Minister of Croatia.
I would completely agree that we have to preserve the planet and everything that is environmentally, but as we said in the beginning, local community. If we don't have a satisfied local community with the development of tourism sector, then we cannot speak about the development of tourist sector. So if we include the local community in all of the things that are happening in the tourism sector, in all of the developments, all of the plans we plan to do as a government, as people who are involved in the whole of tourist sector, then we can say that we have good tourism growth and good sustainable development. That is what I meant when I said balance with our three pillars.
Yeah.
One pillar cannot go without the other. So local community in the first place.
Thank you. A stool stands on three legs. Thank you very much indeed, Deputy Minister of Tourism of Mauritius.
Thank you.
Maldives, I was going to say, yes. Thank you.
For us in Maldives, I would say rethinking tourism would be diversifying our tourism. Especially, Maldives has been one of the premium destinations for the past 40 years, I would say. This year we're celebrating our 50th year. Only in 2010, we introduced, I would say, domestic tourism. So now we are trying to diversify our tourism, to bring tourism to the people, to bring tourism in local islands where they can have their own hotel and they can all benefit from tourism. That's it. Thank you
very much. So domestic tourism, major change, priority amongst all the priorities, Minister of Egypt.
Well, in 1 minute, actually, there are 2 or 3 things that are occupying my mind every day. How technology is going to change our industry, and how can I get the global investors and local investors to benefit from the trillion of Egyptian pounds that the government has spent on infrastructure over the past few years, to benefit from the improved environment for investments. And the third is actually how to make all of this come together to create jobs and offer the right experience for the customers, for the visitors.
Thank you, fantastic. Mexico.
Yes, the domestic tourism is the key bone of this great activity. In Mexico, it represents the 78%. Just in 2019, we had 258 million travelers around Mexico, domestic tourism. So those people, 120 use the hotel services. So don't forget the domestic one, because that's one of the most important. Anytime that we have any problem, I always say to my colleagues, the hotel managers, don't forget the domestic tourism, because it's always the key bone of this great activity. And all the countries are beautiful, so we have to be happy to be here again without pandemia.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Very interesting. Minister Kikilias from Greece, you seem to have had a gender change, but
Yes.
there you go. Yes.
I'm the General Secretary for Tourism Policy and Development of Greece, representing our minister. In terms of rethinking tourism, I would like to use a Greek word. We believe that tourism is not just a sector. Tourism lies at the epicenter of all sectors that transcend governments, economies, countries. So in this respect, I believe we should all rethink tourism and, of course, sustainability, digitalization, and education, upskilling and reskilling, not only of the people working in tourism, but of all our citizens. That is how tourism can play its role correctly, we believe. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Fatima El Seyrafi from Bahrain, what one major change when rethinking tourism?
Thank you, Zainab. I think that I really believe that one of the key roles governments has to play is to make sure that the country is resilient when it comes to future shocks. So one of the major tools of doing that is to make sure that there are the correct policies, the correct legislations in place for government and the private sector to excel when it comes to tourism, as well as never underestimating the power that the human capital has to develop tourism further.
Thank you so much. Rita Marquez from Portugal.
Well, first of all, I think our main priority should be value people that work in the industry. We talk a lot about, having more guests, more tourists, and we forgot the ones that deliver the service. We have to value them, meaning that we have to train them. We have to pay them more, and this is important because sometimes, there is a huge gap when you talk about salaries in the industry. We have to give them the conditions to put professional and personal life at the same, I would say, give them, a right balance. And sometimes this is really tricky part of the equation, especially in the tourism industry, where we have to, be there available 35 days a week, 24 hours days. So I would say that my biggest priority right now, because the numbers are going up, is to nurture those that work in the industry and try to train them and make them happy. Because, industry of tourism is about happiness, not only for the tourists, but also for the ones that work in the industry.
As the Minister Malawi said, you've got to get that balancing act right. So part minister, part circus performer. Niels Olsen from Ecuador, your closing remarks.
Well, our priority is using tourism as a vehicle for conservation and development. So for me, I think it's not only enough to talk about sustainability, but also talk about regenerative tourism. So we leave destinations better off than they were before, especially after the inflection of the pandemic. In Ecuador, we have increased over 60% the protected areas. We just launched a new safe corridor that goes from the Galapagos Islands to Costa Rica. So this was an amazing partnership with Panama, Costa Rica, Colombia, and Ecuador. So yes, using tourism as a vehicle for conservation and development and focusing on regenerative tourism after the pandemic.
Interesting, thank you. And Mauritius Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, your final thought, please, on your priority.
Well, again, I think COVID made of tourism a problem. Let's make of it a solution, and let's make that solution relevant to all the main challenges of our troubled times. Let's act together, let's act now.
Thank you so much. So, Zurab, Secretary General of the World Tourism Organization, I could sit here and try and bring all these strands together that we've listened to, but you are far better than I at doing that, much more experience and knowledge and expertise. So what did you make of our conversations today? Do you think we've advanced the agenda for rethinking tourism?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank to all participants for their leadership, for their very interesting ideas. This is the next series of our meetings, and all remarks are noted. This is our job, to collect these free of charge brilliant ideas and from leaders from all over the world, and to continue thinking why we are rethinking tourism today. Because sector changed itself after COVID. Imagine that big markets like China, now Russia, they're close. I mean, mentality of tourists, it's changed. The stay of this, numbers are changing, and that's why we have to rethink tourism. It was mentioned many times that domestic tourism, we announced year of rural tourism 2 months before pandemic started. It was intuition. We didn't know that COVID will start. And we started to think about best villages program. Future is in regions, and future is in regional development. And it's like, it goes complex. Regional development, people, they need education. They need investments. They need innovation. And why regional development? Because the tourism is the best opportunity and recipe to create new jobs. Our job is always will be to create new jobs. And you will hear many times, next month, next week, next year, from me, education. Education is top one priority. There is a huge demand in education. There is a huge space to invest, and I would say that most important, to sum up today's meeting, I will not repeat the ideas that was mentioned here. We have to invest in tourism. This is best investment today. Look, the countries like Saudi Arabia is investing in tourism. Tourism became one of the biggest driver of the economies for many countries. And second, the best investment is to invest in education. This is very clear, and this will be our message always, and we have to concentrate on it. And I'm sure that with good knowledge, with good education, to support youth, to attract them on the board. So this is another our challenge, and again, very thankful for this important discussion. We will continue this series of discussion. Thanks to you, Zeynep, for a fantastic leadership, and
thank you very much indeed. Yes, I'm mindful that I have to finish on time, 12:40. Thank you very much indeed, Secretary General. Thank you to all my ministers and all of you who also spoke in the back. And thank you to my wonderful audience here. It's been terrific being with you. Have a good rest of the discussions and so on. I want to visit all your countries, those I've not been to. Safe travels and goodbye from me. Thank you. Thank you so much.